Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So today in class, we learned how to divide decimals using pictures. That is a great method, and drawing pictures will always be a great idea. Now, today you're going to learn about the standard algorithm. The thing about the algorithm is that usually once you learn it, it's more efficient. And efficient just means it's going to be faster, but still correct. So I'm going to show you another option, and then you're welcome to choose which one you'd like. Okay, so our goal is today I will divide using the standard algorithm. Our vocab is nothing new, it's just a quick reminder. So if you had a number like 512, okay, and you actually go through all the process of working this out, okay, first of all, this number that's on the inside is called our dividend. And kind of when you say dividend, you kind of hear the in word. So the dividend's the inside word. This is the number that you are dividing. So it's the number being divided. This number is the divisor. Okay, so now if I was to go through and use daddy, mommy, sister to divide this, I'm going to say 4 can go into 5 once. 1 times 4 is 4. I'm going to subtract and get 1. Then I'm going to bring down and get 11. 4 can fit into 11 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. When I subtract, I get 3. And when I bring it down, I get 2. 4 can go into 32 8 times. 8 times 4 is 32. And I can stop because my last digit has a digit on top. So this is the answer, which we call our quotient. Sorry, T-I-E-N-T. Sorry, mine are squished. So we need to know quotient, dividend, and divisor. Okay, that should just be a quick review. The next part is something new though. In notes, we have something called in and out. Now, when you're dealing with whole numbers, everyone always just assumes you put the big number inside and the small number outside. When you're dealing with decimals, it gets a little bit tricky. So what I always like to remember is if I had this problem, 512 divided by 4, this one goes in and that one goes out. So it's in and out. So this would turn into looking like this. Now, when it's whole numbers, you might just assume it's going to always be that way. It's not always going to be the case though. So if you have decimals, you might have something like 0.95 divided by 5. So I'm going to still remember in and out. I'm not going to say which one's larger. So my 5 would go outside and my 0.95 would go inside. Okay, so in and out will really help you during this lesson kind of remember which one or how to set up your problem correctly. Okay, this is just a quick review. Whenever you add a decimal to a number, you must add it to the end so you don't change the value of the number. And we've been working on that since school started. Okay, tonight you have a lot of steps. Okay, first step is set up the problem regular. So we're going to set it up regular like we did when we did regular division. Being sure to choose the correct numbers as the dividend and divisor. So we can't just say the bigger one. We have to know what number is being divided. So you're going to ask yourself, what number is being divided? And that number goes inside. So you're really going to have to either use in and out, like I did up here, or if it's a word problem, you're going to have to really ask yourself what's being divided. Okay, once your problem is set up, step 2 says add a decimal if needed to the dividend. In 5th grade, we're not going to see this very often. Okay, step 3 is the kind of new step. This is what makes dividing decimals very different than dividing whole numbers. Okay, so it says you may not have a decimal outside. And remember, my outside number is my divisor number. So you may not have a decimal outside. So if you do, you need to use loops. Okay, and then this is a rule that comes up again and again in math. So whatever you do outside, you need to do to the inside. Okay, so that step's going to be probably the most different. Okay, then we're going to draw something called a barbell. Many of you might not know who Popeye is, but I always think of Popeye with this. A barbell is one of those old-fashioned weights where it has a long bar and then just two big balls on the end. So we're going to draw a barbell like that. Okay, and our final step is we're going to divide using daddy, mommy, sister, brother. Okay, so what does this actually look like? Okay, so here's my first problem, and I'm going to look at step 1 to kind of help me. Step 1 says I'm going to set it up regular, being sure I put the correct number inside and out. Well, I'm going to use in and out to help me with this. So I'm going to know that one goes in and that one goes out. Okay, so I'm just going to set it up. And I'm ready to go. Okay, step 2 says add a decimal if needed to the dividend. And remember that in word. Well, this one already has one. Step 3 says you may not have a decimal outside. Well, I don't have one, so I'm not even going to worry about the rest of step 3. Okay, step 4 says draw a barbell. So right here, I'm going to go straight up and draw a barbell. And then step 5 says divide using daddy, mommy, sister, brother. Okay, if you want to still write daddy, mommy, sister, brother and do the dots, that may help you, or you might just want to write it and refer to it. So I'm going to divide. 8 can't go into 2. It can go into 29. 8 can go into 29 3 times. I'm going to multiply. 3 times 8 is 24. I'm going to subtract. I get 5. Sorry, let me squish it up. I'm going to bring down. And I'm not done, so I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm going to divide again. 8 can fit into 56 7 times. I'm going to multiply. 7 times 8 is 56. I'm going to subtract, and I get 0. And there's nothing to bring down. More importantly, I can't stop because this last digit has a number on top. So here's my quotient, or my answer. Right there, 37 hundredths. Okay, so if you notice, it's not very different than just regular division. There's just a little bit of decimal work. This one's going to be a little bit more difficult, but I'm still going to refer back to my understanding decimals before. Understanding division. So this one says, set up your problem regular. Okay, well, this one goes in and that one goes out. So I have 0.32 out and 1.92 in. Okay. Step 2, add a decimal to the dividend. Well, I don't need one. Here's my kind of tricky new step. You may not have a decimal outside. Yikes, I have a decimal outside. So how do I fix this? It says, if you do, use loops. Okay, so I'm going to use 1, 2 loops to move it over there. Now, why does that work? Well, when it looked like this, that was considered a decimal. But when I moved it, and now it looks like this, if you think about it, that's not a decimal number anymore. That is the same as 32 whole. So when I move it over here, it's not really considered to be a decimal. But you can't really just move something in math. So since I did that here, it says whatever you do outside, you need to do inside. So I need to move this one over 2 spots as well. Okay, now let's go to step 4. I'm going to draw my barbell. And now let's go to step 5. Okay, so I'm going to divide using my daddy, mommy, sister, brother. 32 can't go into 1. It can't go into 19. It can go into 192. But how many times? Well, if you remember, we said when you have no idea how many times, just to take a guess. And I said 5's always a good guess. So I'm going to come over here and do some side work or scratch work and see what 5 is. And I'm getting 5 is 160. Well, I could probably go more. So if 5 is a little small, let me try 6. I'm getting 192 perfectly. Okay, but where does the 6 go? Remember, it can't go there because then that means 32 fits into 1 6 times. Can't go here because that means 32 fits into 19 6 times. So it needs to go right here. And that was my division. When I multiply, I get 192. When I subtract, I get 0, and there's nothing to bring down. So my answer is just 6 decimal, which is the same as 6. Okay, let's try some together. Okay, I'm not going to have my steps in front of me, so make sure you refer to your steps to help you. Okay, step 1 is we're going to set it up, being very careful about which one it goes inside and which one's outside. So this is my in, this is my out. So 7's outside and 3.43 is inside. Step 2 is make sure there's a decimal in the dividend. Yep. Step 3 is no decimal outside. I'm good. Step 4 is draw a barbell. And then step 5 is divide. So you could use your daddy, mommy, sister, brother to help you. So I have 7 can't fit into 3, but it can fit into 34 4 times. So I divided. I'm going to multiply, and I get 28. Now I'm going to subtract. 4 take away 8 is not possible, so I need to borrow. 14 take away 8 is 6, and sorry, that's sloppy. 2 take away 2 is 0. So I subtracted, and now I'm going to bring down. 7 can fit into 63 9 times. And I multiply. 9 times 7 is 63. And I subtract. And then I bring down, and there's nothing to bring down. So my answer is decimal 49 or 49 hundredths. Okay, let's try another one. This one's going to be a little trickier. I'm going to follow those same steps though. Okay, step 1 is I'm going to set it up, and I'm going to remember in and out to help me when I set it up. Okay, so I'm setting it up, and I have, oops, sorry, that marker does not work. Let me get a better marker. Okay, so that one goes outside, and this one goes inside. Okay, step 2 is I'm going to make sure I have a decimal in the dividend. I'm good. Step 3 is you may not have a decimal outside. So if you do, you need to use loops. So 1 loop, and then whatever you do outside, you need to do inside. So 1 loop. Step 4 is we're going to do our barbell. And then step 5 is I'm just going to divide using daddy, mommy, sister, brother to help me. So 5 can't fit into 4. 5 can fit into 45 9 times. I'm going to multiply, and I get 45. I'm going to subtract, and I get 0. I'm going to bring down, and there's nothing to bring down. And my last digit has a digit on top, so I'm done. So my answer is 9 decimal, which is the same as 9. Okay, let's try another one. All right, step 1, I'm going to set it up. And remember, in and out will help you set them up correctly. So let's set it up. Okay, step 2, make sure there's a decimal. I'm good. Step 3, no decimal outside. So use a loop. And whatever you do outside, do inside. So one loop outside means one loop inside. Step 4 is draw a barbell. And then step 5 is divide using daddy, mommy, sister, brother. So 7 can't fit into 0, can't fit into 6, but it can fit into 63 9 times. Then I'm going to multiply. 9 times 7 is 63. I'm going to subtract and I get 0. And there's nothing to bring down. So my answer is decimal 9 or 9/10. Okay, I know tonight we're doing a lot together because this is kind of a tricky concept. So here is our last one, and this one's a little bit tricky. Okay, same rules or steps though. Step 1, I'm going to set it up. And remember, in and out's a great thing to help you set it up correctly. So it's set up. Step 2, yep, there's a decimal there. I'm good. Step 3, no decimal here. So I'm going to use one loop and move it over. And whatever I do outside, I do inside. Okay, step 4 is I'm going to draw my barbell. And then step 5 is I'm going to divide using daddy, mommy, sister, brother. So 3 can fit into 3 one time. 1 times I'm multiplying, 3 is 3. I'm going to subtract and I get 0. I'm going to bring down and I get 1. Okay, then I start over again. 3 can fit into 1 0 times. I'm going to multiply. 0 times 3 is 0. I'm going to subtract and I get 1. And there's nothing to bring down. Okay, so we have never had remainders. When you get older, you're going to continue this, but at this point, this is where I just want you to stop. You're actually going to see problems very similar to this on the test, and this is good enough. You're just going to leave it just like that. So you did what you were asked to do, because if you remember, when we did division last time, I asked you just to go to the last digit and make sure there's a digit on top. So at this point, you would just stop because there's really nothing else you could do. Okay, so that's probably as tricky as they're going to get. Now, tonight for homework, you have 2 problems, and then as always, rate yourself. Have a nice night, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you in the morning.